to another adventure with the Traveling Ramen. Today we are in Manzanar National Historic Site, just south of Independence, California. It's right off of Route 395. So this is this may be a tough subject for some people, but this was used during World War II as a concentration camp. But it wasn't for POWs or anything like that. These were Japanese Americans living here peacefully. They had nothing to do with what was going on across the water. And due to a lot of different factors, racism, economic hardship on that, they were forced here into the concentration camps. So this is a not so great story of U.S. history, but it's important that we tell the story so it doesn't happen again. So let's take a walk around here and let's tell the story of Manzanar. Alright, so here in Manzanar there are three layers of history. The first one was the Paiute Indians. They were the natives. They were here originally. And then during the 1860s, during the gold rush, that brought a lot of people to this area, obviously prospectors. So that essentially forced them out of the area, so they weren't able to travel freely. The next one is the city of Manzanar itself, and that was due to that started in 1905. The city of Los Angeles wanted to build a 230-mile aqueduct here in the Owens Valley. So in 1905, the city of Los Angeles announced plans to build a 230. During the 1920s, the city of Los Angeles began buying additional water rights and property in the Owens Valley. The city of Los Angeles managed to manage the orchards in 1932. Until the last two families left in 1934. So you have the Paiute Indians, and then this town of Manzanar itself. And of course the last one, so there's more on the Los Angeles buyout policies. And of course the last one was, this was a war relocation camp. So after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, there was a lot of hysteria, obviously, and people thought that the Japanese Americans living here would side with Japan rather than their own country, rather than states. So there were people living here legally that had like farms and houses near airfields, and people got a little paranoid. And so that led President Franklin Roosevelt to declare Order 9006, which basically relocated all of you were Japanese American living on the West Coast. You were put in a concentration camp, and there were 10 of them throughout this area. So Manzanar is one of the 10. It's one of the only ones remaining. But just to show you what fear. And so right here, so President Franklin D. Roosevelt declared a war on Japan the next day, and then Germany and Italy 3 years after that. On February 19, 1942, he signed Executive Order 9066, authoring the U.S. military to carry out the exclusion and detention of American citizens and resident aliens. Although the order did not specify any ethnic group by name, in practice it applied to German and Italian aliens as individuals, but to all people of Japanese ancestry living on the West Coast. So they were very distrustful of Japanese Americans, even though that was not the case, and there was no indication that they were going to side with Japan and sabotage like the airfields and stuff like that. So that's what this is all about. That's where we are. We're at the we're going to focus on the Japanese concentration camp portion of this. See a map here. These were called War Relocation Centers. These were the Japanese Americans will be relocated. Of course, we're here in Manzanar, and then there was some all over the country. Most of these are no longer around, but yeah, there's different. We'll take a tour of the barracks. This is a driving tour, so we'll go out there and take a tour. But this is just some of the stuff. So it says for a 3-week period in March 1942, Japanese Americans could move to destination of their choice outside the exclusion zone. However, in light of objections from Western states that did not wish to be made a dumping ground for enemy aliens, few exercised this option. Similar opposition influenced the Army's decision to transfer internees from assembly centers to permanent war relocation centers. Rather than being resettled away from the coast, internees were moved to one of 10 camps during the summer and fall of 1942. This is the exclusion zone here. So if you were a Japanese American, you could not be in the zone. So you would have to leave this zone, and you had your choice of where you want to go. But if you're living out here in California, why would you go over to the West Coast? So that's why they did these all along the coast there. And they did this because this is closer to Hawaii. This is right after the attack on Pearl Harbor. So you can see right along the coast, along the border, the exclusion zone. All right. One of the most controversial issues of these camps was what they called a loyalty questionnaire, basically questioning your loyalty to the U.S. So couples of men and women were both asked different loyalty questions, and if you were a U.S. citizen or if you were a alien, you would ask different questions. Questions are, if you were a man, are you willing to serve in the armed forces of the United States on combat duty wherever ordered? So that being, if you're willing to serve in the U.S., you would be loyal to U.S. If you're not willing to serve in the armed forces, that means that you had loyalty to Japan. And 28, will you swear unqualified allegiance to the United States of America and faithfully defend the United States from any attack by foreign domestic forces and forswear any form of allegiance or obedience to Japanese Empire? Again, we're asking them where the loyalty. So depending on how you answer these questions would be how you would, whether you'd be able to leave the camp or not. So for women, if the opportunity presents and you found qualified, would you be willing to volunteer for the Army Nurse Corps or the WAC? And you can see they didn't know how to answer that question because a yes question whether they would get into that. And then the most controversial one is 28. Will you swear unqualified allegiance to the United States of America and for any allegiance to Japanese Empire or any foreign government? It caused the greatest controversy and posed different problems for each generation. Issy prevented by law from becoming U.S. citizens, worried about that yes word rather than people without a country. Nisi objected to the implication that they were once held allegiance to. So Issy would be your resident aliens, and Nisi would be the American citizens, and it would under the implication that they held allegiance to the Japanese Empire. So those were the questions they had to answer. So it's tough. It's not a yes and no. It's not a yes and no. It's not a yes and no question. You got to think very carefully on what your answers would be. All right, this is a scale model of Manzanar. You can see all the barracks. It was 1 square mile, and it would be surrounded by barbed wire. So you could not leave, and the people who left would be shot. So if you were here, this was your life. And we'll go out and explore some of the. We'll see some replicas of the barracks and some of the other stuff out there. But just to give you an idea of what the concentration camp looked like. You can see the outside here. It's all barbed wire. Alright, so that's a little overview of the introduction and what went on here. So now we'll take a drive around the auto road and we'll see some replicas of the barracks, the fire station, and some of the gardens that were planted. And I'll give you more details as we go from stop to stop. Alright, so let's hop in the car and let's drive the auto road. It's about 3.2 miles, and they have stops along the way. So I'll show you the different points of interest. Consequently, the building behind me, which is the visitor center, is one of the original buildings to this site. Most of the buildings were torn down, but the this one back here was actually the mess hall, and it was preserved. So it's one of the 3 original buildings to the site. So let's go exploring. The Manzanar Fire Department. So obviously, like anything else, they would need, fires. They would need a fire department. So that was an old fire truck. Back in the, this would be back in the 1940s, because this was here from 42 to 45 was when these camps were here. So obviously, you can see the old fire department here. First stop along the tour is the barracks. This is block 14, and Manzanar was divided into 36 blocks. So this is block 14, so we'll go inside and take a look at the barracks. You see the backdrop, gorgeous with the Sierra Mountains in the back. So I'll tell you a little about the barracks in here, and then we'll go check them out. That was the block manager's office. So I said there were 36 blocks, so each block had a manager, and they would be responsible for hearing complaints and just dishing out supplies. If you needed toilet paper or brooms or mops, you'd go to the block manager's office to get them. So that's one half of the building. This other half will be barracks. So we'll go in here and we'll check this out, and then we'll tour a little bit of the other stuff. Alright, this is a little bit of what the barracks look like. So you would be living here with your family, and among other families too. There's no privacy. There's no bathroom or kitchen. So it's a different way of life. Very, very hot. Obviously, there's no air conditioning. So you can imagine the conditions here. See clothes hanging up. That's how we do that. Baby, you have the babies. You have the baby carriages. Again, there'd be multiple families living here. It's a very good. Imagine living in this 20 by 25 foot apartment with a family, and like the others, without a kitchen, bathroom, or privacy of any kind. Such close quarters and restricted freedom alter living routines, affected family bonds, and shape children's perceptions of home life. So, not a very nice place to be. Another idea what the barracks look like. All the beds close together, the wash hanging up on the line. You have everything. You have your stove over there. Have maybe a game, something down there. Slipper suitcase. So you have all your luggage, your clothes under your bed. You can see the luggage down there. This is it. You have that sheet's your only privacy there. If you want to hang up a sheet, but not a lot of privacy here. So this is what a classroom looked like. So they were here, the kids, everybody, and I mentioned that there was barbed wire around the whole camp, so you cannot leave. So they had to get a school together. So this is what a little school room would look like with the desks, and then a chalkboard over there. Some of the graduates from Manzanar Junior Senior High School, and the elementary school. It's very, very different. So I mentioned there was no bathrooms in the barracks. So there were two public ones. This was the men's one, and this was the women's latrine. So these 36 blocks of buildings, everyone living on this block would use the same bathroom. So you can see how messy that would be. So this is the women's latrine. So we're walking here. You can see very little privacy. No gates or anything. And this is the shower. Again, you're showering next to people that you probably don't necessarily know, because they're from all over the buildings. This is the mess hall. We'll go in and check this out. See what this was like in here. So I said there was no kitchen in the barracks, so this is where they came to have the meals. The food was very unappetizing. The kitchen is where everything was prepared. Of course, you have your plates and dishes out, and the food. And Tuesdays was something called slop suey. Which is making many feel like hobos and tramps waiting in the bread line. You normally know that some sort of soup cannot be served for lack of bowls, while others, the food all runs together and looks untidy and unappetizing when served in bowls or pie tins. Everything else here, there was some politics involved here in the mess halls, and it had to do with economics. So you can read that. I'll pan down and you can read that, but it's very fascinating. And then there was a riot here because of rumors. Based on where the sugar was in the block, but it did not make it to the kitchen. All right, so to break up some of the monotony of the camp life, this is the baseball field. So they built into this block what's called fire breaks, because the new fires would be a major concern. So they plan these open spaces. So people took advantage of these and built. It was a great place for sports and to just get away from the crowded barrack life. There are actually 100 different teams in camp, if you can believe it. So they would come here and play baseball games. People would come to watch. It would be a great escape. Be a great escape from the horrors of living in the camp. So pretty neat, and not a bad backdrop. Right in the bases and in the shadow of the Sierras. Pretty neat. All right, so Order 9066 to remove all Japanese Americans from the West Coast didn't just pertain to families. It also included orphans, Japanese Americans in orphanages, and in institutions. And this was the children's village, and this is where the orphans and the institutionalized kids who were relocated from the West Coast came. And they pretty much were isolated. They tried to be a part of the regular barracks community, but in all, they were just they just hung around their own kind. So this was it was landscaped with lawns, flowers, and cherry trees. So you can picture the orphanage, and then Japanese American staff built playground equipment and furniture, and collected money for toys and other items, while some neighbors in the valley brought cookies and clothing. And they even formed their own baseball team. So you saw the baseball fields earlier. The orphan kids were one of the teams, one of the baseball teams that competed. So that's another part of the sad history here, that Order 9066 included all Japanese descendants. All right. So over the course of the 3 years, 120,000 Japanese Americans, either citizens or immigrants, were brought to the War Relocation Camp. Of those 120, 150 died at the camp. So they went to camp, and they never returned to freedom. 150 were buried in the cemetery here. This is outside of the barbed wire fencing. So that inscription says "Soul Consoling Tower" in Japanese. And every year on the 4th Saturday of April, people come here to spread, to give speeches and keep the memory of what happened here alive. That we may never do this. This is our U.S. government who imprisoned U.S. citizens. So every year they come here to keep the memory alive, and to speak out on the horrors. You see the fence way over there. Alright, that fence there is a remnant of the barbed wire that enclosed the camp. So this cemetery is outside the barbed wire, making these people free. But very sad. They came here not on their own free will, and they died, never having regained their freedom. This is baby. Now I will say that of the 150, only 6 remains are here, because the other ones, the families requested they be returned. So not all these graves are full, but there are only six remains here of the 150. But still, it's a sacred place, and you can come here and reflect on the evils that all because of and the only crime they committed is that they looked like the enemy, that they were Japanese. So very beautiful backdrop, the Sierra Mountains. That's Mount Williamson right in front of us. All right, so as I mentioned, there were a lot of tension in camp. There were shoddy living conditions, shoddy working conditions. People felt like their needs weren't being met. There was no running water in the barracks, the mess halls, the food was very subpar, and there were long lines. And it all boiled over on December 6, 1942. There was a riot on on the street that I'm standing on here, right in front of the police station. They were coming. This would be the main area. That would be the Free Press. That would be the newspaper, and across the way was the post office and the administrative office. All that. And this would be the main road coming in to town. This would be like the main street. But on December 6, 1942. The U.S. Army, the internal police that was in charge of this unit, they opened fire on a crowd. Now, this crowd had assembled because they thought that a Japanese American man had been arrested, and they thought that it was that he was innocent of the charges. So they came to protect him, and tensions boiled over, and there's a lot of misunderstanding, and 2 people were shot and killed. And because of the incident, that is what led to the well, there were rumors that it was pro-Japan and pro-America, which wasn't the case. But again, there's a lot of rumors and hearsay, but this incident here led to them developing the loyalty questionnaire to see how people, to see whether they were loyal to America or loyal to or loyal to Japan, and that started a whole load of stuff that even today we're still dealing with. But you can imagine this is but yeah, right here, basically this very spot where I'm standing is where the riot happened. It was right in front of the police station here, the internal police station. So yeah, the poor conditions, the poor conditions, and just the frustration of all the people who were brought here and stuck here and in prison here, it all boiled over on December 6th, 1942. So it was a sad, like I said, it was a sad moment in U.S. history. So hopefully it's not something we will repeat again. But this one instance was what led to the loyalty questionnaire. Sad chapter in the U.S. where the U.S. Army's fires shots on their own citizens and kills 2 of them, and sending 8 more to the hospital. So let's not let this happen again. So that's why they have these sites like this, so we can remember what happened, and so that it doesn't happen again. Alright, well, that's going to do it for this adventure from the Manzanar National Historic Site. A very, very sad chapter in U.S. history, but one that we can learn from and do better. So until the next adventure, I hope you're living your best life, and we'll see you later.